So, welcome to the Sexy Aging Podcast. You are my very first guest for 2024.
Way to go.
Way to go. And I would like you to introduce yourself, Dr. Premitha. We actually have a bit of a history, but I'd prefer that you just kick off and tell us a little bit about yourself. And obviously, we're in the menopause space, so go for it.
So I am a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. I have been a specialist since way back 1996. So very seasoned in that sense. And delivered like 3,000, 4,000 babies. I can't even keep count at the moment. But what was interesting is the fact that right after my specialization, um, my boss told me to start off the menopause clinic where I was working, where I had studied, And so I started off the menopause clinic, and I think that was my first foray into menopausal health. And I actually began to love what I was doing. And I think that was and I felt really good about it. And I had a great boss. He was one of those, it doesn't matter, you're a junior, go out there, do what you need to do. I will support you. And you need mentors like this at the end of the day because they really pushed you. And right now he's smiling all the way and being very happy about where I am. So that's really, really great. But to cut a long story short, we started off the menopause clinic. It was doing well. We did some research. I left to the private sector and I continued doing menopausal health in a different way, in a slower way. Part of the society in Malaysia, and along the way, more and more companies got in. But of course, the WHI in 2001 really shot things down. And then slowly we have come up to where we are. We have now dedicated web pages. We have our clinical practice guidelines out. So menopause is actually coming back with a big oomph in this country.
Yeah.
And I'm part of it and I'm enjoying it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the story.
Okay, even in that short amount that you've shared, I've already got questions, but I just want to fill in a few gaps just
Okay.
for the listeners. So, for those that haven't heard any podcast episodes with Sexy Aging before, I used to live in Malaysia, and Dr. Premitha delivered my son when I was 42 years old. So, I had a geriatric pregnancy.
I hate that word.
I hate it too. And you were my obstetrician and you delivered my son's soul. And that was when we first met each other. That would be like 11 years ago. And then I continued to live in Malaysia and I started to go through menopause, but I did not know that's what it was. So never heard of the word perimenopause, did a massive deep dive to try to find out what the heck was this that was happening to my body, my mind. And then COVID happened and a couple of I think 18 months into COVID and we moved back to New Zealand. Now I'm back in New Zealand and I'm going fully into the menopause space to help women figure it out, understand, how to figure out their nutrition and their health and all this sort of stuff. And I come back to Malaysia and I'm doing a retreat, right? Midlife Women's Retreat. And I'm there and one of the first questions I get asked is, do you know any doctors that specialize in menopause care? And I did not know that it was you. So someone in the retreat said, oh, I think it's Dr. Premitha. And I'm like, hold up. Is this Dr. Premitha at Bangsar Hospital who delivered my baby? And within a couple of hours, you and I were connecting on WhatsApp, having a conversation. Which meant to be. So here we are. And now you're on my podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. So then I came in to visit you in the office. You were so generous with your time because I know how busy you are. And you gave me your book. So tell me about the book.
Well, I think the book is actually the clinical practice guidelines of management of menopause in Malaysia, and it is something that we wanted to do for a long time. So I led a team of like-minded individuals who put this together, and it was through COVID. So at the end of the day, a lot of it was done by me sitting at the computer when there were no patients who came into the clinic. But what I personally wanted to do, and that was my mission, was the fact to bring out a book with a little bit of data about menopause in Malaysia. We don't have much, so we've got a long way to go. but we have to start somewhere. And I believe that, we have to make some inroads. So, compiling a little bit of data about the hot flushes and the night sweats and the joint pains. And along with that, bringing in Malaysian data about the non-communicable diseases, stroke levels, venous thromboembolism, just bringing it all together and having that as part of it. And then talking about menopause generally and how it affects women. And the most important part is the second half, where it actually talks about what women can do. So it's more of the lifestyle changes and the complementary medicine and would herbal medication work, would supplements work, and then that big chapter about menopausal hormone therapy, because I do believe it's just not hormones. It is looking at the woman as a whole, and sometimes just tweaking her balance, and tweaking her eating habits and her
Yeah.
stress levels. You might just get her much better without anything more to do. So it is looking at a woman as a whole and then taking her through the next 30 years. Life expectancy in this country is beyond 75. Um, and so if you have a woman who is menopausing at 50, one third of her life is in the menopause. So when I look, and that's what I tell my patients, and I said, look at you, and I said, okay, you are now, say, 48, 50. I would like you to be as healthy in the next 30 to 35 years of your life. And that's what this journey is all about. And that's what's so important. It's just not, oh, I'm menopause, I'm dealing with it now. No, my dear, it is next 30, 40 years of your life. What can we do together to keep you healthy? So that's my personal journey. And that's what I would like my patients to do, or what the women that come to see me.
Yeah, our missions are completely aligned. So I often speak about, what does the rest of your 30 or 40 years look like? Do you know that you've actually lived longer than you've got in front of you? So how do you want to do that? And I see the menopause as a little bit of a blip. So it's a blip in your health to make you kind of step away, pause, reflect, and think about, okay, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to dial into that's going to give me credible science-backed information to support my health in the future? You're one of those people. You're a groundbreaking doctor in menopause in Malaysia. I wish that I had known you, or, I wish that I'd known about what you were doing when I lived in Malaysia, because I truly had no one to talk to. So when I left, and, yeah, so I'm now thinking about all the women and the friends and stuff that are going through this. Can you just give a bit of a landscape around how women find you, how women know that you're the person to talk to? Like, what are you seeing and what symptoms are they coming to you for specifically? That's 4 questions.
Okay.
Pick and choose.
I will tell you a story. So
Yeah.
basically, I think the clinical practice guidelines that we brought out last year was in many ways a big thing, because it opened up not only healthcare professionals' minds, it opened up women around. There was a lot of publicity around that launch of that guidelines. And suddenly everyone thought, okay, all right, we know what to do, or we know how to go about it. There was a lot of interest from even GPs and doctors from other specializations who suddenly realized that menopause was not as simple as they thought. It was just not a phase that, oh, you're growing old, let it be. And so that generated a lot of interest. So that was number one. Number two, I must say that the government is also doing a few things and trying to wake everyone up. So I must give them a bit of credit, in the sense that they are exposing the risks of non-communicable diseases for men and women as we get older. And we know that women are subject to it. So that is now coming in a big way. And especially for working women, they've got data for that. And I think there are a lot more studies that are slowly coming up, which are also going to expose a lot of data in this country. Again, I'll be the first person to say that it is not enough, but we have to start somewhere, and hopefully with more awareness and with more data that is pointing into the right direction, we can get the correct funding to have nationwide studies and go from there. So now to answer one of those questions that you asked me just now about how do people find me? So I did this little test the other day. I just went to Google
Yeah.
and just put their menopause in Malaysia, and that was my face. So I guess, I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I guess that's one of the ways to find me, that's out there. But a lot of women are actually, it's in many ways, it's word of mouth, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's more of the fact that um, uh, dealing with someone going through the perimenopause or menopause is very different from dealing with someone who's coming in for a pregnancy checkup
Yeah.
or who is coming in for a routine examination. Because here you have a usually in the normal scenario, you have a woman who is a little bit hesitant, doesn't know what to say because, she's not sure of what's happening in her body. And in many ways, it's a gentle approach into talking to her and finding out what's actually going on behind that scene, in the head there.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes patience. It may not everything might not come out in that first visit. It might the second visit. So it is more of building that rapport with that woman and trying to understand what she's going through. And also probably talking about your own personal stories and what you went through, because that, brings about a bit more empathy. And then going from there, because menopausal visits usually take time. Uh,
Yeah.
talks, can take a lot more time and definitely needs a lot of patience because you really want to then look at that woman as a whole. And as I said, it's not just, oh, you come here, I'll give you the hormones. That's not what
Yeah.
it is.
No.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's about asking her about how she's handling work, family, what else is going on in her mind, how she handled previous pregnancies, postnatal depression, what's there in the genetics. It's a huge thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I really, really love your approach, Dr. Premitha. I think that's kind of cutting edge stuff. And I've spoken to another doctor who has very similar approach, and she's in New Zealand, very, very popular doctor. And most people that I refer to her just say she takes the time to get to know me, you know? That's what they say. And then we get on to the problem solving. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And in many times they would email me, they would call in for a chat, which is fine, because they just need they need someone to reach out to, which I'm very happy about doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool.
What more questions were there? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, I'm like forgotten as well. Oh no, I do remember. So, um, just from a perspective of a woman who is maybe feeling some kind of way, not sure that it's menopause, makes an appointment with you because maybe she already sees you on the regular, comes in, it seems kind of agitated, confused. Oh, I've got all these things, and they kind of lay it out, and you're already thinking ding, 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 thinking about the things that she's telling you. What are you sort of hearing generally from women that are coming to you that they're not sure that it's menopause, but what are the first symptoms that they kind of list?
I think sleep is one of those important things that actually change in the very beginning. And a lot of them in this country, I can tell you that it's not so much the hot flushes that
Yeah,
women. It's more of the joint pains. They get this achiness and joint pains. So a lot of them might come in and tell me that, you know what, I'm just not feeling quite right, especially just before my periods. My periods are not too bad or they're slightly delayed, but I'm feeling a dip before the periods and I'm not the same. Am I going into depression? A lot of women think that, they are having some mental health issues and that's what's causing them to feel that way, or they're having some palpitations. A lot of them might go and see the cardiac doctors because they're having palpitations. I would say go because you know what? What's wrong with the cardiac checkup? There's no harm, right?
yeah.
So I would always say you want to go and see the cardiologist, go ahead, do your stress test, do whatever, make yourself happy that there is nothing there, and then come back. Because it just makes you feel better that you've sort of
Tick that box. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. A lot of them come in with indigestion problems
Mm,
because they suddenly find that there are certain foods that they can't have, and that one of the first things to look out for is the dairy. They can't, they suddenly say, "Oh, I'm suddenly lactose intolerant." Some of them come in with, and because of that, they go and see the gastroenterologist. So, so they've gone to see other doctors and then they're coming to see me because now I've trained my colleagues very well. You've sought out your side and then send them to me because
Yeah.
it might be just the hormonal changes that's causing it. A lot of them have allergies, sensitivities to skin. So they're coming in with other issues, to be very honest. And then, we talk about it and then we go from there. And then, it's a lot of making them understand and accept that this is a hormone change. And many women they cannot accept it. They cannot accept that this is menopause, and there's always this fight about, how social media has brought up menopause to be a very negative thing.
Yeah.
So when they can't accept menopause, it's always a fight with the body, and then you get all your symptoms coming in big time. But
Yeah.
once accepting it and say, okay, this is a change of life, let me see what I can do to tweak things up. So I can't have dairy, never mind, I'll cut it down. When you sort of accept it a little bit more, then things work out much better. But it's a whole shift in that thinking process and what they do. They need to try to sleep earlier. A lot of them would exercise in the evenings, and I say, sorry, just you have to change your exercises to morning. You don't want to wake up at night. So
Yeah.
a lot of small, small things that sometimes it's just talking to them and making them accept that this is a hormone change.
Yeah. I remember when we sat down and we chatted for quite a while, and I just felt incredibly aligned that you were so on top of the lifestyle recommendations. And I know that you've been through menopause yourself, and I can't remember how old you are, but I nearly fell off my chair when you did tell me.
I'm very proud to say that.
You're 60.
I just turned 60.
Oh, fantastic. And you look fantastic, and you obviously really take care of yourself. And so I know that you've done the work through menopause to implement the changes to look after yourself. You are the walking embodiment of what a post-menopausal woman in her prime health should be, right?
Well, I still have a lot of weight to shoot, but I'm medically good, which,
Yeah.
I've done I'm very proud that at 60, I went through this whole barrage of tests and I'm clear, which I'm
Yeah.
really proud about. Yeah.
Yeah. And really cognitively clear. I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited about in the postmenopausal stages, because there is some research that indicates that obviously perimenopause can be really challenging on your cognitive function. But apparently when you sort of start to get past that and you make those lifestyle changes and you do them for long enough, then your cognitive function kind of comes back, and you're like more inspired, more clear on what you want to achieve or, do with the rest of your life. And that's exciting. That's the cool part. And that's why we need to demystify menopause and take away the fear factor, right?
Yeah. Now, cognitive function, I think one of the most important things that every woman needs to understand is that sleep is important. And you can see it yourself. Okay, let's say we have 7 days in a week and 5 days you sleep well. And those 2 days that you don't sleep well, you're crap next day. You don't function very well. And cognition is bad at that time. But if you have a good night's sleep, you are feeling on top of the world the next
Yeah.
day. Trying to get sleep in, I find, is the most important thing, because if you sleep well, the day goes better.
Yeah,
And
100%. Yeah.
you think better, you function better, everything sort of jives in your head, and things are so clear. But you're right. Personally, I feel, and I'm never hesitant to say this, that I have done more for myself after menopause than I have done before that. Not that I was not doing anything before that. I was doing a lot of things, and publishing, bringing out a lot of journals. But after menopause, my brain's in a different, it's in a different era. It's like I feel very young in my head, and I it might be the lifestyle changes, it might be the fact that things are much more clearer for me. So all is not lost at all. You know what? You can do so much, and I've got so much going on right now. Um, I'm not stopping.
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. Your energy is like next level, and you're so inspirational. Really appreciate what you're doing for all the women in Malaysia, because when I left and I started thinking about the women that I knew that are about the same age as me, and I knew they were struggling, but we were not having a conversation on menopause. So my next question is menopause in Malaysia still a taboo topic, or is it because you're talking about it all the time, you don't think so?
Oh, it is a taboo topic. It is.
Okay.
First of all, we need to look at the fact that Malaysia is multi-ethnic. Okay, so you have the ethnic variations. So you have ethnic variations, you have socioeconomic variations. So all this is now going to affect how a woman goes through menopause. So, and I'm biased because I'm living in an urban area. We don't have data so much on the rural areas. I would really love rural area data. So I would really love the indigenous population data because that's what's going to tell you what's happening out there. Um, but I can tell you right now that when I look at the three main ethnic groups in this country, and I'm going to extrapolate this from a study that I'm doing right now. Okay.
Yay. Yeah.
And this is again very raw data, very raw data. We've still got about 3 to 4 months of collection to do, but I'm looking at women who are working between 40 to 60 who are going through the menopause. Okay.
Great.
Looking at how they are actually going through it in terms of their symptoms, in terms of how they're coping with it, and various other aspects. So I've got the ethnic group variation, I've got the socioeconomic group variation. So that's going to be really interesting data that's going to come out next year, because of the fact that no other country in the world can do it like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, with the multiple ethnicities, right? Yeah. So,
Right.
just for the listeners, like if they're not aware, we're talking about Muslim Malaysians, Chinese Malaysians, and Indian Malaysians, of which
Correct.
they all have completely different practices and lifestyles, different foods, different attitudes, different working system. Like it's all different, right?
So, in terms of the ethnic, okay, so the Muslims, they actually embrace menopause, to be very honest. Say that for them, it's a different phase of life that they go through. They like the fact that they don't have the periods because then they would do their religious pilgrimages to Mecca, and they like that journey through that. So it's a
Yeah,
very accepting society. So they are supposed to accept their symptoms and move on. Now you have the Indians who also don't like having periods because it's also for them a time to go to the temples. And usually you don't go to the temples when you have a period. So
yeah,
again, they don't, but they are now stuck with the fact that yes, they are going through the problems. Yes, they don't want the periods, but they are having their problems and not knowing where to go. Then you have the Buddhists or the Chinese who can be Christians, they can be Buddhists, and they are now the main group that's actually suffering. Okay,
yeah,
you can see that with the data that's coming in right now. So with this data, and again, I must say this is very, very raw data. And this data, now I've got about, I think as of yesterday, 930 respondents, a big group already, but I'm aiming more. So it's actually showing me that in this big group, 20% of women are actually suffering through menopausal symptoms at work. And that's
okay,
about the same as what the overseas data is. And and about 10% of these women actually have thought about leaving work or thinking about taking time off work or have already taken time off work. And about 10%, 1 in 10 women are doing that. Now
yeah,
that's I find that really, really sad because 10% is a huge number in the workforce. It's huge. And these are women who are growing older at their workplace, and they're probably reaching a very good level at their work and probably producing a lot, and now they feel that they are threatened by the younger population,
mm,
and they can't voice out whatever feelings or whatever symptoms that they are going through because they feel threatened by the younger ones. So
yeah,
in silence. And so how do they then manage it? Either leave work or they take time off to take a break and see whether that would help them. And that I
yeah,
find really sad. Now, when you look at the ethnic variations, again, you find, I said 10% just now, But what the raw data is actually showing me is that in the Muslim community, it's 5%. So
Okay.
then, raw data, we've got big numbers to go through. We've got to analyze it again through socioeconomic groups and things like that. But it's so interesting. It is really interesting to see where this data is going through. So, yeah, so have me here 1 year down the line and I can give you more info about it.
Would absolutely love to, because I have done a few interviews on the differences in the ethnicities when it comes to menopause. And yeah, we had a similar conversation. I spoke with a Muslim advocate of menopause in the UK, and she spoke about the same thing, about the acceptance of menopause and, you know, being a stage of their life that they were accepting of. So that was really cool to hear that. My curiosity is in the Chinese community, just trying to get more data, more information there. And you're starting to get the cogs moving in my head. I'm going to throw something at you that's a bit left field, and it's from a personal experience. So when I had babies late, okay, so I had my first one at 35. And after that, I had multiple miscarriages. I've never spoken of this on the podcast before. So I had quite a few miscarriages. I lost a baby at 5 months. Yeah, then took a bit of a break from trying to get pregnant. So it was pretty rough. And then out of the blue, I got pregnant. I was 41. And I was, you can imagine, pretty scared about that now that I realized that being pregnant and being older might not be a fantastic idea. And luckily, I mean, you were my doctor. So I was put on progesterone, right? So my thinking is, in hindsight, are we actually going through the beginning of menopause anytime from the age of 35 plus? Because if your body is struggling to get pregnant, and we know that there's something to do with progesterone, which you need to be pregnant, is that my question, is that validated? Could that be something? Are you seeing this? Because I think women are also withholding having children till later, like I did, because I was establishing a career, right? And in the Western culture, this is really common.
I'm guilty. I had my child at 37, so I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
We are seeing is not progesterone deficiency, we are seeing estrogen dominance. That's what we are seeing. So we're
Okay.
seeing too much of estrogen and not enough progesterone to balance it. So that's why we are now living, I actually believe a lot in what we call exoestrogens, which
Yeah.
means that you have a lot of estrogens in in all the waste products that we have. We breathe it in, we drink it in water. So, and a lot of the milk that we have are coming from factories where they are actually pumping the cows with a lot of hormones to get more production. So
Yeah.
I think little by little by little, it might be a tiny fragment, but over a period of time, that actually increases our inherent estrogen levels. And whatever we have, we are now giving it to our next generation and next generation. So what's happening is the risk of breast cancer is going up and younger women, fibroids, adenomyosis, endometriosis, gallbladder stones, all that is in women. Men are getting the pot bellies, they are getting the high blood pressures, the diabetes. So a lot of things are happening, which is more estrogen dominant. And thus, the progesterone comes in to balance it up.
Got it. Okay. But I think it's probably not a great idea to have children quite late, is it?
Um, it's difficult. I did the same thing. I finished my specialization and then I had it. No way could I have had it earlier. No way.
Yeah.
Look back, it was not possible. I had a couple of miscarriages after my son was born. And then I thought, well, that's it, meant to be. And I stopped there. But a
Yeah.
lot of women, actually, I don't blame them. Look at what the economy is like. Look at what's happening around the world. They want to establish themselves first, and then get pregnant. And when they're ready, unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Can you get pregnant? Can you have more problems? Would you have more problems as you get older? But each one to their own. And then we just support you through it. That's what it is.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for answering that question because I've been thinking about that for a really long time. And I'm like, I'm going to ask Dr. Premitha. My final question for today, your hope for menopause care in Malaysia for the future. Like, where do you sort of see things heading in the next 5 years, for example?
Well, to be very honest, when I turned 60, I had a 10-year plan. I have a 10-year plan.
Bring
Um,
it.
10-year plan is to actually bring out more nationwide data. So research nationwide, collaborate with the government to have more menopause awareness, menopause clinics, and have more nationwide structured program about pap smears and mammograms and blood investigations and life change. I mean, like, healthcare. It basically changing healthcare to be more um, advantageous or more approachable to the menopausal woman.
Yeah, amazing. And you will do it, like you're leading it. So I'm expecting, every time I come back, I'm going to see the difference and I'm going to hear the conversations become more open.
So
And
we make it more louder.
yeah, yeah, it's awesome. Thank you so much. You are so generous with your time.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.